Good afternoon, everyone. For those that were here before, I'm sorry for the technical difficulties. Fortunately, I was able to fix that, and we are back. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Good,
Yes.
good. How you guys doing today?
Good. Thank you.
Good, good, good. All right. Today, we're going to be talking about closing statement. Let me bring this thing here. All right, great. We all can see that. I'm gonna move my screen to this side here. One of the reasons why I brought this subject today is because I'm seeing a lot of agents that they don't review the closing statement. We used to call it a HUD. It's not called a HUD anymore. Now it's called closing statement. And even though the title company is the one who prepares the closing statement, the broker is still responsible for the content of all the informations in it. So meaning it's our responsibility to review the closing statement, especially because there are some informations or numbers, that's going to be transferred from seller to buyer or from buyer to seller, depends if it was paying in advance by the seller. And there are some prorates calculation that we have to do. And you need to verify that those numbers are corrected and are not missing. And those agents that does review the closing statement, the only numbers that they look at it is that if the commission is there and if it's the correct amount. And they don't look into all the other informations. And we're gonna look into that, and you're gonna learn how to make those calculations to verify that the number is corrected. I had a situation about, I think it was 2 years ago, where the title company did not calculate the prorate for the rent because the buyer, I was representing the buyer, and the buyer was buying this property that was rented, and there was some prorate for the rent and also for the property taxes that was not transferred, and also the security deposit that is now in the hand of the seller that also needs to be transferred to the buyer. And they did not include those informations. Now, the buyer trusted me a lot. We became good friends after that. And he was at the bank and he called me and said, Orlando, how much should I transfer to the title company? So he was trusting me. Whatever number that I tell him, he would transfer that amount. And I was reviewing the HUD and those numbers were missing. And that was about $8,000 missing in his pocket. So I had to get in contact with the title company. So they had to correct those informations and give me the new HUD. So I gave the seller the information about the number that he should send. So you see, it's not only because it's our information, it's also our reputation with the client. Because if it was missing $8,000, he may not figure it out immediately, but sooner or later, he will find out that was missing $8,000, and he's not gonna blame the title company. He's gonna blame me because I didn't review the HUD. And legally, I am still responsible for the contents of the title company. So let's take a look at the HUD. This is the one HUD. I just blocked the information from the buyer, but you see that was John who prepared this HUD, the Florida closing escrow, and they're always correct. But we are not always working with John. Sometimes buyer decides to work with a different title company, even though we recommended to use John because he's very professional, he's very knowledgeable. And with this probably 5 years that I'm working with them, and they never made any mistakes, and everything is 100% corrected. But let's look at this. Okay, the first thing here that let me get my mouse always disappeared on me. All right, I'm gonna get my arrow so I can point so you guys will see what I'm talking about. All right, the first thing will be here. This is the information about the condominium. Now we know that the condominium is paid in advance at the beginning of the month. The closing date was on the 14th. So meaning that I need to transfer that money, the buyer actually needs to transfer that money from the day of closing to the end of the month. That belongs to the buyer now and was paid by the seller. So that amount needs to be transferred to the title company. I mean, to the seller. And if you see here, it's a dual entry. You have 171 on the buyers as a debit, and you have 171, same amount, as a credit to the seller. So the money is gonna come from the buyer and goes to the seller in the amount of 171. And how you guys are going to calculate that? It's very simple. Okay, let me get a box here. Now remember, this is something that you have to review. Okay, I want you to understand that this is something that you guys gonna have to get this paper in your hand prior to closing, review all the numbers before you tell the buyer or you send the buyer the HUD. Okay, so this is how it goes. If the monthly payment is $295.33, that's how much the seller paid at the beginning of August. His responsibility for the condominium association is from the first day of August all the way to the closing date. After the closing date becomes responsibility of the buyer. That's why the buyer needs to transfer that amount to the seller. So we need to find out how many days we have in August. Okay, August has 31 days. Then we're gonna have to get this and divide it by 31. So if you follow me, we have 295.33 divided by 31. It's $9.52. And then we divide and you multiply by the number of days that belongs to the buyer, which is the 14 all the way to 31. So including the 14. So 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. So it's 18 days. So we multiply that by 18. We have exactly 171.48. Let me go back here and let me take this off. Let me put it again, 295.33. I want you guys to take a picture of this screen so you will be able to review that. Divided by 31. So that will be equal to $9.52. Okay? And then we're gonna multiply that by 28 days. I mean, 18 days. And that will be equal to $171.48. So now you are verifying that this amount is correct. Okay? Now the second thing we need to calculate is the property taxes. Now we understand that the property taxes is an annual fee that is paid in arrears, meaning at the end of the year. Now, if it's paid in the end of the year, the buyer is the one who's going to be responsible to make the payment. But we got to remember that the buyer owns the property from August 14 all the way to the end of 2020. So from January all the way to 2000 and all the way to August 14 is still responsibility of the buyer. So that money should be transferred from the seller to the buyer. And that's what I was mentioning to you guys before. These numbers were not on the HUD from the example I gave you guys. They did not calculate the proration for property taxes. So meaning the buyer will end up to pay the entitled property taxes when he's only responsible for the property taxes from the moment that he buy all the way to the end of the year. So in this example here, we're gonna make this again here. The annual property taxes is $3,029.11. Okay, so we are going to divide this by 365 days. Okay, we need to find out the daily property taxes to multiply by the amount of days that the seller owns the property to verify if that amount is corrected. Remember, our responsibility is not only to find if my commission is corrected, okay? So when we do that, we get 329.11 divided by 365. We have $8.30. That's the daily property taxes. Now we need to calculate how many days that property belongs to the seller. So let me put it in here at the beginning. We know that the January has 31 days. February has 28 days. March has 31 days. April, 30 days. May, 31 days. And June, 30 days. July, 31 days. And August, 14 days. Because it's all the way to the closing date, not all the way to the end of August. This adds to 226 days. Okay? Now, if I get this and multiply by 226, the amount will be $1,875.56. Now, when you look at the amount, it's here. $1,875.56. That is debit the buyer, meaning debit the seller, sorry. The seller is gonna have to give that money to the buyer. And it's also a dual entry because the buyer is getting the same amount as credit. We're good? So far, so good? Now, I want you guys to see the importance of this information that we're giving. Okay, so you follow me so far? Yeah. We have this information that is being transferred from the seller and give it to the buyer. The second thing we need to see is, we already covered one. Let me put this here. We cover property taxes. Now, in this example here, this house was rented. Okay, in this example here, the house was rented. So if the house was rented, the rent is paid in advance, meaning that the tenant already paid the landlord, which is the seller, the amount of the 1 month rent. Now, the seller owns the property all the way to the 14th. So after that, it belongs to the buyer. So from 14 all the way to the end of the month, that amount needs to be transferred to the buyer because now the buyer is the owner of the property. So we also need to calculate that. Let's go back here. We know that the rent is 1,375 and 300, sorry, 375. That is the amount of rent. Now, this number needs to be divided by the number of days in August, which is 31. Okay, 1,375 divided by 31 is going to give us $44.35. That's the daily rent. Now, we know that the buyer owns the property for 18 days, so we're going to multiply this by 18. Actually, until 25, because that's what the lease agreement is. So it's 11 days that belongs to the seller, to the buyer. Then we have $487.90. Now, we look into the amount here, 375 divided by 31 is 44.35. Times 11, which is the amount of days that the new buyer owns the property, is 487, and this is another dual entry. It goes as debit to seller because the seller has the money in his hand and he needs to transfer that money to the buyer, and that goes as credit to the buyer. Okay? Now, another thing that we need to concern is, we did this. The other thing we need to concern is the security deposit and advanced rent. Now, if they have security deposit and advanced rent, then 2 months needs to be transferred to the buyer. In that example here, the buyer did not have, the tenant did not have the advanced rent, only the security deposit, which is in the amount of the rent. So then you have here 1,375 as debit to seller because the seller is the one holding the security deposit, and transfer to the buyer. Now imagine when the tenant moves out of the property and he needs his security deposit being returned to him if the property is in good condition. Now the new owner, which is the buyer, we're gonna have to return the money to the tenant. And if the buyer did never receive the money, then the buyer is gonna have to take the money from his own pocket. And that's exactly what happened with that buyer that I gave you guys the example. Okay? They did not include all of those informations. They did not include the property taxes. They did not include the proration for the rent, and they did not include the advanced rent and the security deposit. And it was rented for $2,000. So all of these things adds up to almost $8,000 that was missing to the buyer. Okay? So once again, it's not only because it's our responsibility, it's also because it's our reputation. Okay? If you guys never review the HUD, I suggest to you to start reviewing the HUD, especially on those informations. Of course, we're gonna look into the commission because that's the best part of it. I understand that. But our responsibility does not end if we do not review those informations. Guys, you have any questions about this so far?
No.
Yes,
No,
Carlito. If you have usually in a lease contract, you have the first, last, and security deposit. Also, the last month is not included in this example, right?
Not because this particular example here that we are using, the buyer only gave, actually, this is what happened. The buyer knew that he was going to close, and the buyer was actually the tenant. Okay, so he made an agreement with the seller not to pay August rent, and he used the security deposit, the advance rent. Okay, but you are correct. If the tenant at the beginning of the lease agreement, they pay 3 months, first month, last month, and security deposit, then the last month and security deposit needs to be transferred. So in that case, if that was the case, instead of being 1,375, will be the double. Or they are going to specify, like itemized, 1,375 for security deposit and 1,375 for last month advanced rent. Good?
Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome. Now, if you guys want to take a picture of this, so when you have a HUD in front of you, closing statement, then you will be able to verify those numbers, okay? I'm gonna clear the screen. We good? I'm gonna clear.
Linda, I have a question. When
Yes.
is this, what part of the process, when is this calculated? What part of the process is this?
It's prior to closing. Okay, it's prior to closing. Let's say maybe they will send 3 days prior to close. They will send it to the agent. The title company will send it to the agent, the HUD. So in that time is the time that you're going to review it.
Okay,
Okay.
great. Thank you.
You're welcome. You don't get this at the beginning of your transaction. You're gonna get this at the end, because now the title company, if it's a condominium, like in this example here, because we do have a condominium association being transferred from the buyer to the seller. If it's a condominium association, then the title company will request a stop letter from the association, and this information will be on the stop letter from the association, and also the information we'll be getting from the buyer, the tenant, because they also have a stop letter from the tenant that shows how much money he pays for, how much money he has in that, we can say in escrow, but it's for the security deposit. And only after the title company collect all those information is when they will be able to make the calculation, especially because the calculation is done to the closing date. And we don't know what the closing date is going to be until we are very close to the closing date, right? Because the bank may not be ready. Bank is still collecting some information from the buyer, still collecting some information from appraisal or some other informations. And the title company doesn't know what the closing date is. Now you see that all those calculations was made based on the specific closing date. That's one of the reasons why it has to close on that date. Because if we can't close for whatever reason, then all this calculation will have to be.
The number change.
Yes, because all the numbers are gonna change, okay?
Arlindo,
Yes,
quick question.
sure.
New buyer needs to execute a new lease for the tenant? Let's say.
No, you don't. You don't. There is one thing very important that we need to always remember is that the lease survives the sale. Okay?
The lease survives the sale. So the lease has to be in
The lease
original
can continue
condition.
the same, and then the new buyer, the new owner, can make a new leasing agreement at the end of this leasing agreement.
Excellent. Okay, Arlindo, thank you.
But the new owner has to be agree or approve that it's gonna have a tenant.
Well, that's the reason why I mentioned that the lease survives the sale, because I've seen agents getting into problems because of that. Why is that? Because let's give an example, okay? And this is a real example. You will work with the buyer, and the buyer is renting in another location, okay? So the buyer wants to buy the property to move into the property. It's not an investment. It's going to be their primary residence. And some agents, they're just concerning in finding the property that meets the criteria, the buyer's criteria. But they forgot to look into the fact if the property is rented and the lease agreement is still standing. Okay? Because if you show a property to a buyer that there is a tenant in it and you're going to close it in August, but the lease agreement is going to go all the way to January. Remember what I said, the lease survives the sale, meaning the buyer won't be able to move into the property until the end of the lease agreement. So you need to make sure that all the properties that you are sending to the buyer and you are showing to the buyer are property that will be available vacant at closing. If it's rented and they are on year tenancy, which means that the lease agreement is still standing. If the tenancy is on a month-to-month, then it's going to be the seller's responsibility to get the property vacant. If they're on a month-to-month, they don't have a lease, so then the tenants can move out. But if they do have a lease and the lease is in good standing, then the buyer is going to have to honor the lease all the way to the end. Okay?
Okay.
So always remember that
Thank you.
that the lease survives a sale.
The sale.
Okay? Good.
Thank you, Arlindo.
You're welcome. Now, we are going to look into what I've been telling you, we're going to see it, which is how we can find properties in a different location besides the Miami-Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, because we are a member of the Miami-Dade Association of Realtors, which has an agreement with Broward and Palm Beach. So meaning if I log in on my MLS, I will be able to find properties all the way to Palm Beach. But if I have a client that wants to buy a property in Jacksonville, I can find those properties on my MLS because my MLS does not have access to the list in Jacksonville. I had a phone call from a friend that he said, look, I have my mom wants to buy a house in Orlando. So if she's buying a property in Orlando and I want to help her to find that property, I have to find a way to search for properties in Orlando. You got to remember that our license is for the state of Florida, which means that you can conduct any real estate transaction in the state of Florida. In general, depends on the value of the property. It's not smart to drive from here to Jacksonville to show 5 properties in one day, and the buyer does not like anything, and then you have to drive all the way back here. It will be better to make an arrangement, like a commission agreement, referral agreement with an agent in Jacksonville, and at least you get something out of it instead of driving all the way there. But depends on the value of the property. I say the property is $1 million, it's worth the driving, right? Property is $5 million, it's worth the driving. But 100,000, 150, 200,000 will be better to get into agreement with an agent in that location. But you can still find the property and negotiate better your commission because you are the one searching for the property. Okay, I'm going to share my screen with you. So we're going to look into how to find those properties, okay? Let me bring this here. Share my screen. Okay, so here is our portal. Every time that you log in, you're gonna get to this portal. And the MLS Advantage, it's right here, okay? You just click on it. It's a bit different than our regular MLS, but it's not impossible to figure it out, okay? If you have the MLS number, you can put them here. If you have the address, you can put the address here. But if you don't know anything, you just put the city. You can put Orlando. You're looking for property in Orlando, okay? And it is a single family. And you can click here and find other property type. Could be a vacant land, multifamilies, condominium, townhouses, okay? You can choose any one of them. Active, and then you can put your price range. You want something between 200,000 all the way to 250. Okay, you know that you want something that it's at least 2-bedroom. Okay, and you just click on search. Now you have all the information. There's 125 properties that match your criteria. So of course, you're not gonna send all of them because it's a lot of property for the buyer to look at. And the more options you have, more confused you are. And remember last time you went to shopping for clothes? If they have a lot of options, you don't know what to buy. So we try to keep between like 10 properties. And this is what you do. You add to report, okay? You see the search is from high to low. I can change this right here and I can put from low to high. Okay? And how many pages you want to see on the results page. Okay? And if you want more details, you can come and looking for more details. Now, if you want the buyer to see this property, just click on add to report and then add to report. So you're gonna look into all of those and then you're gonna see which one is really in a good condition and it looks nice, and then you add them to report. Best thing would be to narrow your criteria. I put minimum 2 bedrooms. I can put 3 bedrooms. So instead of 148 or 28 properties, it's gonna show me a lot less properties. So I might be able to send all of them. I can click here to view details about these properties. Okay, it's gonna show me all the pictures, exactly like in our MLS, and show me the details. It's a 2-bedroom, 2-bathroom. There is no half bathroom, the size of the property, the size of the lot, okay? And you have all the information here. And if you want to, you can write a contract. Now remember, if the property is not in our county, we're not gonna be able to use Form Simplicity to write a contract. So that's why they have this option here to write a contract. So you can write a contract through MLS Advantage and have the contract signed by the buyer, and then you submit to the seller's agent, and you can conduct the same business over there, okay? I had this client that called me. They already knew the property that they want to buy. So that makes my job very easy. So they already knew the property they want to buy. Just put the address, write a contract, submit to the buyer signs, and we're on the way to closing. Okay, now back to search. I have 4 properties on my report. So I'm gonna click on the report here, and I can create a report. I can remove some of them that I don't like it. I can remove all of them and start it all over, or create a report. If I click on create a report, then I have this option to email the report. So if I click on email the report, I can send this directly to the buyer and I will get a copy of it. So I can follow what the buyer is receiving, or I can just print the report. Okay, this is a custom detail report, and this is a custom summary report that has less information, and this has more detailed information. And if it says customer detail information, meaning that the listing agent phone number, contact information, it's not going to show on the report. Okay, and you can show any one of this. Now, going back to our beginning, just for you to understand, this is how we're going to go for. We have some more information that we can include it on our search to minimize the results of our search. And any city inside Florida, you can do the search. Some people were asking me, can I do it in New York? No, our license, it's not to New York, so we don't have access to the New York listings. You have to get in contact with an agent in New York. That's gonna have to be a referral agreement, because we cannot conduct any transaction in any states that we don't have a license. Okay? Question here.
It's more friendly than Matrix.
Yeah, it has less criteria, so you can choose less. Like in the MLS, you have a lot more options, like restrictions. Can it be rented? Does it allow pets? This has a little less criteria. Good. No questions. I'm going to pass to my friend Leo. Leo is going to talk to us about some good loan programs for no documentation. Leo, are you ready, Leo?
I am.
All right, good. So I'm going to make you a host,
Okay.
and then you can share your screen.
Okay. Before I share the screen, I just wanted to give you some information about mortgage and what it takes to do a qualified mortgage. A qualified mortgage is one that usually meets 3 criteria, and that's the credit, the income, and the asset. Normally, this is what lenders look for before they approve a loan for closing. However, there are situations when a buyer does not meet those criteria, and one of the criteria is, for example, income. A lot of times the person does not have enough income, or they basically do not qualify for a qualified mortgage that would meet the three requirements. So in that case, we are a lender. Loan Depot is a lender, and a lot of times we try to satisfy every customer that comes in looking for a loan. And one of the ways that we do that, we outsource that loan to other lenders who has an agreement with us, basically. So in the case where a person does not have income, we have a lender that would do that for us, and then we'll outsource it to that particular lender. And one of the programs that we do have is a owner-occupied with no income verification. I'm trying to look for the attachment here so I can share with you. Give me a minute. While I look for that, I just wanted to continue giving you the information so for the sake of time. This program is basically a no income verification. There's no income verification required. They would not look at tax return or W-2s or anything that had to do with income, such as pay stubs. The only thing that they will require is for you to provide the 2 year of employment verification. Is everybody in?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So 2 years of income verification is what we need. If the person is self-employed, what we need is an accountant's letter. an accountant's letter verifying that the person has been employed for 2 years, and that will suffice as far as notifying the lender that they are employed and they are able to produce some type of income. And this program is good for units that are 1 to 4 units, which means they can be condos, they could be single family homes, and they have to be for owner occupied.
It could be also a fourplex, up to 4, multi-unit, multi-family, up to 4 units.
Exactly, as long as the owner is going to occupy one of the units, that'd be okay. Okay. The requirement is basically 700 credit score. That is a minimum requirement for that particular program. And the loan amounts can go up to $2.5 million. Anyway, this program is, they offer 5-year ARM, 7-year ARM, 15-year fix, or 30-year fix. And they do have an interest-only option also for that program. So if you have someone that has, has to meet these criteria, it is possible to do it with no income verification. First-time home buyers are eligible for this program. And we also need 1 month of bank statement covering at least 30 days as far as documentation. But the main thing on this program is that there is no income verification. This used to be popular back when before the crash, but now I see some lenders are getting creative and they're becoming more active on this type of loans. 100% gift is allowed. So in other words, this buyer basically just has to show that he's employed for 2 years and he can get money from someone else to buy the property.
Has to be the same employer or can be different employer if he changed the...
It has to be a 2-year consecutive employment. So we need to verify that the person has been employed for 2 consecutive years. Again, and if the person is self-employed, we just need a verification from the accountant. The accountant letter will provide that information and then we can proceed. This program is also good for refinancing. I know you guys don't go into that, but they do cash out up to 55% loan to value for cash out. So if you got anybody that's interested in that. And the main point on this too is that they do need 40% down for this particular program. So the financing will max at 60%. Any question about this program? Okay, that's one of the programs that we offer through the broker networking that we have with other lenders. Is everybody able to see the screen now?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's loading.
Okay.
Okay, now we see it.
So this is basically the details of that program. So if you want to make a copy of it or take the information down, so when you come across something like that, we are able to address it. Now we had many other programs that we can, search and get the borrower to qualify for, even though they don't meet the 333 criteria. But again, we need to have a scenario. When we look at scenario, then we try to match it with one of these programs that these lenders are offering out there. Once the scenario is clear, then we'll get back with the realtor and say, yeah, this is something that we can do. And then we go into pricing. Pricing on these loans is usually has a premium. So you can look at interest rate between 5% to 6% at this point. Just last week, I closed on one with another loan that was asset depletion. The person did not have a job, did not work, so he would not qualify for this program because you need to verify you're employed. But in that particular scenario, the person did not have employment, but he had money in the bank. So he had enough money in the bank to cover the amount that he was borrowing. And based on that, we were able to qualify him and give him the loan. Right, minimum, also the minimum loan amount too is, they're looking for at least $100,000 in this particular program. So someone that's not borrowing up to $100,000 would not be entertained for this program, basically. Okay, that's all I have. If anybody has any questions, I'm available at the office on Wednesdays and Fridays and 24/7 on my cellular phone. Any questions about anything, you can always contact me and I'll be happy to answer your questions.
Leo, can you share this flyer in the chat? Do you?
I can do that.
Thank you.
If they let me to, because some of these lenders, they don't want that information to go out in public. It's just, I have to read the fine print at the bottom there because sometimes they have restriction, but this one doesn't appear to have any restriction, so I can share this one. Okay, everyone, have a great day. Thank you, Arlindo.
All right, Leo, thank you. You can stop the sharing, please.
Yes.
Thank you.
Great. Leo, one more time, thank you for sharing this information with us, to be our partner, and to support our agents. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, Anthony, are you here with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
All right, Anthony. Thank you again for being here with us and sharing all those good informations.
Thank you for having me. All right. So just wanted to give you two quick updates. The first one in regards to eviction. So the governor did allow the eviction and foreclosure ban to expire. He did not renew it. So that did expire on October 1st. However, the president did sign an executive order that authorized the CDC to ban evictions and foreclosures as a matter of public health and safety through December 31st. So residential tenants and owners facing foreclosure and eviction, pursuant to this CDC order, they could complete an affidavit so that they will not be foreclosed or evicted. One other update I have for you is Realtor.com just issued their latest monthly housing trend report for September. And for the first time since 2016, homes sold in September faster than they did in August. So usually in a typical year, September is usually the best time to buy. The rush of summer home buyers and families settling down for the school year subsides, and September is usually the go-to time for buying. But now, due to the pandemic, there's record low mortgage rates, skyrocketing buyer demand, and a shrinking inventory. The busy season has now been pushed at what it looks like to be at least through the end of this year. Homes are selling 12 days faster than expected, according to the housing report, a rate of 39% faster than at the beginning of the year. Combine that with listings being down 13.8% from last year, typical buyers now are paying about $20,000 more for a home and facing at least 25% more competition than they did at the beginning of the year. So if this trend does continue, buyers need to be prepared for competition throughout October or at least the end of the year. So for agents representing buyers, understand there is lots of competition, there's low inventory and a high demand. So definitely encourage your clients to put in their best possible offers And on the other side of things, for listing agents, know that you will have lots of offers to choose from because the market is hot, and these monthly reports are indicating that it will continue at least through the end of this year. Those are the two updates I have for you. Thank you, Arlindo, for having me, and I'll send it back over to you.
All right, Anthony, thank you again for the information. Guys, if you have any questions, you can address those questions to me, to Anthony, to Leo, and you have the numbers, and we are here to support you. Okay? It was a great meeting. Do you have any questions right now?
No, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
No, Arlindo, thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, guys. Thank you for being here with us, and we'll see each other again next week on Thursday. I'm ending this meeting right now. Thank you and have a great day.
You too.
Thanks, Arlindo.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Have a nice day.
You too.